Det är tisdag, börsen den handlas ner svagt och idag har Gabriel bjudit in en otroligt pessimistisk dansk gäst som ska ta oss hela vägen tillbaka till 1929. Vi ska också summera ruset i SBB och raset i Yubicos. Varmt välkomna till Börslunch.
Ja, stämmer bra. Det är den 13 maj i kalendern. Vi summerar eufori på Wall Street igår. Mer försiktig stämning i både Asien och Europa. Apropå Europa så har vi med oss en gäst från Köpenhamn. Henrik Zeberg heter han, känd från X bland annat för sin tämligen bäsiga syn. Vi ska ta det här på engelska. Henrik, varmt välkommen kan jag säga på svenska. But the rest will be in English. We had a groundbreaking, very strong day on Wall Street yesterday. Your initial thoughts on where we are in markets today, and a warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much for having me on today. Well, yes, not surprising that we had a strong day. I mean, just a month back, we had economists, we had analysts all over the world thinking that we were falling into the recession and that we had a major top in the stock markets and that the economy was, pretty much declining from here, and markets the same. I didn't see that, and I also said that at that point, that I thought we would have a very strong rebound, actually a very strong acceleration in the market, and that's what we see right now.
Vi ska ta en titt på vad Nordeas aktiemarknadsanalytiker Martin Björsell sa om marknaden i en intervju här i EFN igår. Ganska likt Henriks tankar. Jag tror att de kommer att få en mer olik syn senare i programmet. Men så här lät det igår.
De två punkter som vi har sett som orosfaktorer när vi blickar längre fram. Det ena har ju varit förstås konjunkturen och risken för en amerikansk recession. Minskar vi kanske lite med det här. Och sen så inflationen som man har varit orolig för. Allt annat lika med lägre tullar så borde liksom inflationsimpulsen bli lägre. Så att jag tycker att rörelserna är väl rimliga. Sen liksom, magnituden är svårare. Och det tycker jag liksom, det blir också väldigt tydligt när man tittar på namnen. För det är, rörelsen i sig låter ju mera som att det är liksom ett rejält skifte. Att liksom, det här var en stor nyhet, marknaden skiftar om.
I would like to hear your thoughts on this, Henrik. But first, I am a bit curious on why you did not see this kind of things the other economics people saw with the recession and so on.
Because like in 2022 as well also, and you can go back and check my tweets there as well. I mean, people have a tendency to think that recession is something that just comes out, and it's something that is almost like man-made. And we are very much programmed also, and especially when it comes to media, they think that we can, it's an easy way to explain things. That's the right way. So when Trump says something, then you have a recession because tariffs, and that's not the way the real world works. The economy is a very, very complex thing. It's a supertanker that moves through cycles, and the supertanker is really you and me. It's a consumer of the economy, and when we start to see that we have more money on the banks, we will start to spend more, and if we can see that it's declining on the bank book, and we find it harder to find a job, then we also become more pessimistic, and that's where we start to consume less, and that's when the business cycle turns. So when people are saying this all of a sudden coming out, and remember in December, nobody actually thought that, we had Biden coming out of the office and people was all good. And then you had Trump coming in and you had all the tariffs and people started saying, oh, this will, create a recession immediately. That is simply just not how the economy works. And it doesn't move like a speedboat, like what people think. It moves like a supertanker. And the supertanker is actually turning, and it's been turning for quite a while. It's been turning since 22. And the supertanker is when you look at the consumer, you look at the inflation, and you look at yield levels that have been moving up. And that is slowly killing the consumer. It's not killing the consumer overnight. And when I say killing, I mean it's putting pressure on the consumer. It's like we look at our houses and we say, okay, it's become more expensive to buy a new house, or even if you have, a mortgage loans that will be adjustable rates, you'll see that it's become more expensive over the last few years. People then trying to, tune into that, and over time they're kind of, coping with it, maybe spending a little of their savings. But slowly you'll see that the consumer becomes more and more depressed about the situation, spending less, and that is where the supertanker slowly turns. Then, of course, you have political things coming in, but that is not what turns the supertanker. That is what creates some kind of, hiccups to the economy that then will be overcome, and then you'll see that the economy continues.
But Henrik, wouldn't a temporary pause in global trade be kind of a missile that sinks even a supertanker? These kind of shocks, the pandemic, the fear of tariffs, couldn't they possibly create a recession very quickly?
No. Not a tariff war like what we have seen here, where you have to talk, and we have seen this before. Also, it comes up. There will be some kind of discussion, but it will require that a lot more than that. It will require that you have a situation that is already getting bad, and when we have that in the U.S., and I don't understand why nobody's actually talking about that. It's the housing market in the U.S. is really looking bad, and that is the situation that is more concerning at this point. That you have a slowing of the economy. People cannot afford to buy a new house. They cannot afford to sit in the mortgage loans that they have at this point. You see credit card delinquencies are moving up really quick. And you have, as I said, again, the housing market where you have a number of sold houses are simply at levels we have seen when the U.S. economy, when the U.S. population was 70 to 100 million people less than it is today. So this we don't talk about, but we love to talk about the things that we can hear in the news, and we can see Trump saying something and the tariffs, and that is what creates the recession as people see it. That is just not the way it works, and this is where the big business cycle is. The supertanker approach is what we need to take on us more. The corona, the virus, was something different because that closed down the economy overnight, so to speak. But even that can be picked up by the business cycle.
Let's talk about
This is the business cycle.
What are we looking at here?
Yes. So you're looking at the business cycle here in terms of, this is something that is a term that a lot of economists use, and this is my way of doing it. You have the business cycle is not just one. It's actually the leading business, the components of the business cycle to the economy, and they are coincident. And these are the two charts for that. If you observe the red chart and the red graph here on top, where you see that we have the leading indicators, then you see that when the red curve moves down through the horizontal line, that is when you get the recession signal. It doesn't say that the recession is coming immediately, but it says it's coming at some point.
But is this like the inverted yield curve that tells us a recession is coming, but it doesn't tell us when?
Exactly. That is one of them. That is one of the components. So that's not just, but that's one of them. So right now, as you correctly pointed out, we have had a major yield inversion. The problem is that people are talking about the yield inversion. When it happens, the inversion is happening, but that's not when we see the problem. If you go back in time, you'll see that it's actually when it uninverts again and you start to see the spiking of it, that's when the problem comes. And this time around, we have had the largest yield inversion we have ever seen, bigger than 1930s and bigger than in the 70s and everything, that has been bad over the years, bigger than in the financial crisis. So these are the things that puts into the leading indicator we just saw. And we just saw that also that it crossed over again now in December of this year, last year, 2024. And then you'll see that 2 to 3 quarters will pass by, 3-4 quarters the maximum, and you will see that the economy will then become getting worse. And you will see that the coincident indicators are then rolling over as well, and you see that crossover. The coincident indicator on the chart that you showed are the labor market, it's the production, and so on and so forth of the economy.
We're going to look more on the parts behind this reasoning very momentarily. I just want to take a quick look at today's movements on the Stockholm stock market. Och jag byter tillbaka till svenska, Elin. Rätt händelserik dag trots att breda index inte rör sig så mycket.
Nej, vi har ju en del namn som rör sig. Vi har fått en del rapporter där bland annat kan nämna Wiker och Yubicos och SBB. Jag tänker att vi ska komma tillbaka till Yubicos och SBB, men då Wiker som kommer in något bättre än förväntat, framförallt på resultatet. Men när jag tittar på vad olika analytiker säger om det här så är det kanske inte ett toppenresultat. Men det är värt att komma ihåg att det ändå är en aktie som inte gått så här hyfsat bra senaste åren. Så kanske ett steg i rätt riktning. Sen så har vi ju Vestas och Ovzon som fått eller tagit då orders respektive där. Så att det är vad som rör på sig. Kopparbergs Asker rör inte så mycket på sig på sina rapporter.
Vi återkommer till de stora rörelserna. Alltså, Henrik, do you look at individual names? Do they form part of your broader macro analysis?
Individual names are part of the indices that I follow. So yes, of course they are part of that, but they will only move if there were, the sentiment in the market. So if the market is not doing well, then obviously the big movers here will not. You will also start to not having such a good day. So right now you're seeing the effect of liquidity coming into a market in an economy that is not yet rolled over, as you can see by the business cycle. And in that environment, we can expect to see quite large moves, positive moves in all sorts of names on the stock market. So that you have a negative outlook in the economy doesn't mean that it's rolling over, and that's what you also heard. We said this famous phrase that the markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And that is probably what has been happening now. People are starting to see that there are things out there. Now we get this market blow off top that I see, even though, as you can see here also, the condition index, the current condition of the economy in the US is not looking good. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't look good, doesn't mean that the market has to top right now. It means that we are now in the final phase where you see the ECB and you also see the rest of the central banks around the world starting to supply liquidity to the market to try to stimulate it. Here we see, as I said before, that the consumer is the economy. This is actually the chart that I think that the Fed should be looking at, so that you see that the consumer confidence actually leads the unemployment. The unemployment here is inverted, which means that when it rises, it actually falls. And when it falls, it actually rises. And what you can see here is that when the consumer confidence is plunging like it does right now, then we should expect also unemployment to move up rather strongly. And that is what I think is going to be the next phase. I mean, you don't have a consumer sentiment right now that is supporting any kind of a strong economy, but you have liquidity coming into the system in the final phase where the central banks are trying to stimulate the economy.
But labor markets,
you can see that that's a little bit.
Labor markets are pretty resilient so far. How do we know that they're actually softening? If we're talking about the US,
you can look at this also. I mean, every time you have these kind of, again, now this may become a little technical, but you can see every time you have these rounding bottoms here on this large long-term chart here, you will actually see at some point it starts to accelerate. You can see on the momentum indicator down below that we actually are there where we should expect that things are starting to deteriorate in the labor market really quick. Very soon, actually. So that we haven't seen it yet. It's not the same as it cannot happen. And I say that you're going to see that the labor, that the non-farm payrolls are not going to be as positive. And also we have to remember the non-farm payrolls have been adjusted by up to 60,000 jobs per month on average for the last 5 years, on average. Which means that even though you get 177,000 now, it can come out at 110,000 or even 80,000 or something like that. It can also come out better. But you're seeing across the world that economies are slowing. If you look at the Fed fund rate and you look at the EC rate, also the ECB rate, you will actually see that the ECB are much further ahead in terms of trying to stimulate the economy because the situation in Europe is not good. And that is normally also what we see, that the European economies are slowing before the US. So I think you're going to see something quite different over the next let's say into end of this year, and then see how when markets are actually realizing that things are not so good.
And what happens then I want to discuss with you in just a minute. But before we go there, tillbaka till svenska. Elin, väldigt markanta rörelser, 2 stycken som vi lovat att diskutera här i programmet också. Yubico först ut.
Ja, Yubico ner 17% idag på då att man har rapporterat ett hyfsat dåligt resultat. Det var sämre över hela linjen, och det jag reagerar på är att den marginalen är då den lägsta sedan Q3 2023 när man också hade den här konferensen. Även bruttomarginalen kommer ner, och jag tycker att man har aldrig haft en negativ orderingång så länge man har varit noterad. Så att jag tror också det är framåtblickande som verkligen tynger aktien idag tillsammans med liksom de övriga komponenterna. Det är också ett högt värderat bolag, så att det är inte vad man vill se, att tillväxten går ner. Så.
Fascinerande att de två största rörelserna på Stockholmsbörsen idag är två av de mest blankade bolagen också, får vi säga.
Exakt, Yubicos är någonstans 5-6% blankat, men vi har ju också SBB som har kommit idag. Vad är det någonstans runt 17% eller 15% blankat i SBB. Jag har inte helt koll på vad som har hänt där, men det kanske du har.
Ja, absolut. SBB kom med rapport. SBB har också bolagsstämma idag här i grannlokalen Kina-teatern. Jag antar att det är klackarna i taket med uppgångar på mellan 20% och 30% i B respektive D-aktien. Det här beror inte på den allmänt hyggliga kvartalsrapporten utan på att Kjell-Inge Røkke, den norske miljardären, tågar in som stor ägare. Ilja Batljan har twittrat om det. Kurserna är upp. Det är ett nytt spännande kapitel får man väl säga för SBB med en ny huvudägare. Åtminstone sett till kapitalandel. Antal röster kanske inte är i toppen.
Sen tycker jag alltid att det är värt att komma ihåg att vi fortfarande är på nivå vi sett tidigare i år trots den här uppgången, och att om vi blickar lite längre så ser det ännu mer negativt ut.
Och som vi såg på graferna. SBB var ju lite av en bubbla, eller det var väl en tämligen majestätisk bubbla på Stockholmsbörsen. And bubbles leads us back to our Danish friend. Henrik, we've been talking about an individual name that burst tremendously, causing incredible pain for Swedish private savers. We're going to something much, much broader and much, much worse. You believe that we're looking at one of the biggest asset bubbles possibly in history. Am I exaggerating here?
And not all. I mean, we could just look at the numbers. I mean, it's not something I say, it's something the numbers says quite clearly. So if you look at the market capitalization to GDP, say what is the value of all the stocks in the US, and compare that to the size of the economy, this is also known as the Buffett indicator, then you've had that this number is now to 208%. I mean, and you can look at what it was at, during other peaks and other major tops. Everybody knows that the 2000 was an extreme top, 137%. We were at 208%. Now it's come down a little, but we are getting up there again now. We had in 2007, we had something that was lower than that in 1929, which was a major bubble as well. We had something. So we have the largest market capitalization to GDP ever. And then you can sit and look at that and say, well, that's just the nature of the game. Well, I think it's not. I think there's also a reason why Buffett has been, putting so much money into cash now. I think there's a reason why we have seen that, when we see something of a volatility in the market, it creates a lot of downside force immediately. That's because, the move they've seen to the upside has been so extreme. We're up 700, 800% since 2008. And the thing is, we know what happened in 2008. We started to this new regime where we started to say we print money because we want to stimulate the economy and then everything will be fine. The thing is, you can have this free lunch for some time, but at some point, you will actually see that it doesn't work. I mean, this is about printing money to create wealth. If it was that simple, I think the Weimar Republic would have had, kind of another fate than it had. So I think we're seeing something here now which is coming to an end, and just a very speculation within also crypto, meme coins, and all that. These are things that we see at the extreme ends of the in the market. So looking at the numbers, looking at the PE numbers as well, as you also showed, these times are the extremes here, and we have so much speculation going around that when this pops, then it's going to be bad times for a long time as well.
Just a question, because with these indicators, they don't take into account that these are different companies than they were before with the higher margins and so on. Do you have any thoughts on that pushback, so to say?
Well, you can say how much the PE ratio measures how much would you like of the yearly returns would you like to pay for your stock. And when I said that Tesla was going to top at some point here, just was around December, and I said I pointed some decline in that on Twitter or on X, you could actually see that I think it was at 130 times. So you're ready to sit and wait 130 years with the current level of earnings to actually get your money back. And these numbers can reach extreme levels, but normally you would see for a mature stock that it should be around 8, 10, 12 would be high as well. But we see that these things are just extreme at this point in many companies. And so I mean, you can say that this time is different. I just heard that, a few times before, and I don't think this time is going to be different. I think it's what is the same as always human psychology and human greed. And we always want to say, remember 2000 as well, this is a new economy. There's something, you guys don't understand. And guess what? Things were not so well after the IT bubble.
But even if you're right, the timing is so incredibly difficult here. We had one shot while you were going. We can take it up again. We have 30 seconds left. Talk to me about the timing. It's so easy to get it wrong when you talk about a bubble bursting.
Correct. The timing is absolutely important. And this is where we need to wait for the economy rolling over. But there are clear indications right now in the stock market that what we see right now, the rise in the market right now that is going to bring people over, is happening under deteriorating strength in the market. So actually you're seeing all the strength indicators of the technical analysis are actually declining while you see the market is rising. That is not a good sign. So I think you're closer. We're not here yet. I see it into September, into Q3, Q4 maybe, but not much later than that.
That is not a good sign, but this was indeed a very good discussion. Henrik, I take blow off top first, big problems later as my main takeaway from this very good chat. Henrik Zeberg, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Sorry, but our time is up. Don't be a stranger. We'll talk more soon. Thank you. Och till alla ni som tittat, jag och Elin Wiker tackar för oss. Vi är förstås tillbaka med ett nytt Börslunch imorgon igen, precis som vanligt. Vi ses då.